You know, I've heard it said that Wigan is the happiest city in England. And honestly, with a track like Three Sisters Circuit barely a stone's throw away, I can absolutely see why. I love this track, and I've been here a lot, racking up thousands of laps across multiple endurance races over the last year and a half. Seriously, I'm more familiar with this track than I am with female anatomy. But I've only ever done endurance races here to a decent degree of success. But while I had a week off, I thought to myself, how would I fare in a sprint event? And today, that's exactly what we're going to find out. So the way this is going to work is, there's quite a lot of us, so we're split into two groups, myself being in the second group amid a bunch of pretty rapid drivers. We're each given 3 10-minute heats in which we need to score points, and whoever has the most points at the end wins. The caveat is how we get gridded up. We don't do any of that quali nonsense over here, so what happens is we're given random grid slots towards the front, middle, and rear of the grid across our heats. Myself, I'm starting in P12, P3, and then back to P12 again. So I've got to just cut through practically the entire grid twice. Fair enough. Anyway, enough yammering, I think it's time for the first heat to begin. So, let's grid up and get this party started. And the light goes green, and let's go racing. Now, we've opted for a rolling start in this race, and already it's going to be an absolute melee as we come into turn 2. I'm just kind of scrambling to try and keep position on the track at this point, because I was very much riding the curbs right there, but I've made up a couple of positions right off of the rip. This guy in front of me is very much an obstacle in my road to joy, but don't you worry, I'm going to find my way straight past him as soon as the opportunity allows. I'm going to hold station behind him coming down the Conrod Straight because I couldn't get anything done coming through the Lunar Bend. Whoever this is on my left here absolutely did not draw well in the kart lottery, but this guy in front of me is about to get something worse. I make the slightest bit of contact with the rear right of his kart coming out of that corner, and I do feel terrible about it because you probably saw me shaking my head and looking back right there. I did want to let him through, I did, but I saw just how many people were right next to me vying for my position, and I ultimately decided it was a very minor bit of contact, maybe I could get away with it, and me trying to give him the position back after he'd gone, let's be honest, sailing over the curbs of the exit to the Conrod Bend would probably have cost me ultimately more than a 5-second penalty would have. That move I just made going into Lunar Bend means that I am now up to 5th place, and these guys in front of me aren't too far away, so 2 laps into the race I've gained 7 positions, albeit murdered my way through one of them, and now I'm very quickly gaining on P4 right here. As I lunge to the inside of the corner at the end of the Conrod Straight, which is still an unnamed corner, I think I've got the move done, but he's actually pulled off a brilliant switchback, and now he has the inside line coming towards the hairpin of Joey Dunlop. However, I get a wider entry, and I start looking for the inside coming down the main straight, but because I've got a much faster exit than he has, I don't even need to find it, I can just find it going down the straight itself. Get the inside line through the first corner, lock him out, and that's P4. Now I just need to gain these 3, and I've got a decent amount of time left to do it. We're exiting the Lunar Bend right here, and these two are side by side coming down the main straight. I'm holding the middle of the track, and then I make a sudden, very aggressive swing over to the right-hand side, which number 8 absolutely notices, and decides to go a little more defensive, forcing the guy who is in P3 out wide, meaning that I just get to slot in very carefully behind him. However, I am very close to kart 8 at this point, and pretty much I will have a slipstream when I need it. However, it doesn't look like I'm going to need it, because I find the absolute perfect line coming out of Joey Dunlop, find the inside, lock him out, and then start chasing down P1. So in the span of just 3 completed laps, I've gone from 12th to 2nd. So yeah, I'm feeling myself a little bit here, allow it. However, overtaking this guy is going to prove to be the hardest thing of the entire race, because even though I'm faster than him in the corners, even though it doesn't look like it here, I've actually braked slightly earlier to gain the inside line, which almost worked because I'm absolutely skirting the curbs right here and I almost have the nose in and he isn't able to force me out. But it doesn't matter, because if you can tell, he's got a straight line advantage. Ever so slight, but still an advantage nonetheless, which on a track like Three Sisters Circuit, which has a lot of straight sections, including apparently the longest straight section of any rental karting track in the UK, a straight line speed advantage is a massive advantage to have. It means that I can't set up the same moves I was setting up on everyone else back there. It means I'm going to have to try and get the entire move done in the space of one corner with someone who's on pace and hold them off going down a straight, which is not as easy as it looks. I'm following him through the lunar bend once again. I look for the inside line again. I managed to get the nose in. I think it's a done deal at this point. I'm hugging the curbs right here, but as you can tell, he's slowly starting to pull away in front of me again, which means I'm still not going to have the nose in once we get to the end of the straight, meaning effectively he's defended his position just by driving in a straight line. It's very frustrating. But not quite as frustrating as what's going to happen here. It's quite a few laps later because I've had to fight to catch up with him again, and as I'm about to follow him through the first corner, it looks like I'm close enough to maybe make a move. However, I misjudge my braking and send it too deep. And that is a perfectly valid reaction, because what I've effectively just done there is sent it so deep going into the second corner that I've effectively given him one hell of a gap that I'm not going to be able to close up because of the straight line speed disadvantage. And I'm already quite frustrated by this because I did record this video before I made the video at Team Sport Birmingham slandering myself for throwing these kinds of tantrums. However, I already know that it's over, there's not a whole lot I can do at this point, and it's all my fault. Sure enough, just a lap later, I come sailing across the line to record my first heat, finishing in P2. And this is where the frustration started to simmer away, because I remembered that I started this race in 12th and there's 2 more to go. So, let's pull into the pits and have a little talk about what I need to do next. So, not the result I wanted, but still one to be proud of, because again, this is a point-centric event, meaning that a P2 from P12 is an incredibly valuable start. While I'm in the pits, I find the fella that I basically punted into the back straight corner and give a carefully crafted excuse.
I'm being knocked about left, right, and centre there.
And after the other group finished their heat, it was time for us to go back out. I'm starting in 3rd for the second race, so as long as I'm still finishing that high up the grid, we should be gravy. To the rolling start! And the light goes green, and let's go racing. Now, thanks to a slow reaction from P2, it means that I'm immediately able to jump him off the line, even before the merge cones happen, which is nice. However, I'm following kart 26 through. I've already got the nose in coming towards turn 3, and going into the entrance of the lunar bend, I've got them locked out. Now, I am in an incredibly fast kart, and that will come up again in a minute. However, this is not a done deal, as I come sailing down the Conrad straight doing human DRS to try and maximize my speed for some reason. I think it's a done deal until I look over to the right and see Jamie and Oliver. Now, please do not get these two confused for the famous TV chef who absolutely hates chicken nuggets. These two are some seriously quick racers, and not only are they fighting each other for the lead, but they're also using each other for slipstream to try and fight me. Because the kart I'm driving is actually the fastest kart of the entire fleet, and these two seem painfully aware of this fact. I, however, am blissfully oblivious of this fact, but all I know is I need to fight past these two and somehow stay ahead of them, even though they have some pretty quick karts themselves, but at the same time, they're using each other for bump drafts and slipstreams, which is going to be hard to fight all by myself. Me being right behind these two while they have this battle, though, is actually a blessing in disguise because I'm getting a double helping of slipstream right here. Oliver in kart number 5 massively misjudges where the apex is, slides away, goes wide, and definitely hops over those curbs right there, which are brutal. I get a good run on Jamie coming towards the final corner, but then we get shown a red flag. And the reason for this red flag is that someone has come out of their kart at Lunar Bend. This has apparently become a pretty commonplace incident these days, as I'm sure Ben Paynes will be happy to tell you. By the way, you can watch that crash in full on his YouTube channel, and it's absolutely mental. Anyway, what this restart annoyingly means for me is because these two were ahead of me on the last recorded lap, this is the order we're restarting the race in. So it doesn't matter the fact that Oliver went wide, hopped over the curbs, and lost a lot of time while I was getting a run on Jamie for the lead. It all happened in the lap that the race got red flagged on, so I've got no choice but to slot behind these two in P3 as we come sailing right back around the Joey Dunlop corner to restart the race in another rolling start. So, as we come creeping back towards the line, I keep running out of things to say as I wait for that box to go green so I can say the line, the light goes green and let's go racing. Now I get a better start than Oliver does on my inside right here, but I don't think I've actually locked him out properly yet. He is still very close to the rear of me as I'm suddenly hassling Jamie for a position. He's saying that we should work together, however, at this point I really don't think that's in my best interests. However, that is an absolutely terrible decision to make in the moment, and you're going to see why at some point during this race. I have a ridiculous slipstream on him here, and at this point I'm bump drafting him, but I'm kind of just tired of just being stuck behind him. So at some point I'm going to get bored, attempt to move, which is actually right here, and what actually happened there was Oliver was slipstreaming me and bumped into the back of me, catapulting me directly into the lead of the race. But now those two are going to start working together behind me, which is going to prove to be a problem because Oliver's found the inside line coming through here, which effectively means that these two are both going to slipstream each other and put me back into third place. This is what I was fighting for practically the entire race, and I'm going to do something which will definitely split these two up, but not benefit anyone really except for Oliver. As I chase these two through the lunar bend, I make a little bit of contact with the rear of Jamie's cart because this cart I'm driving has an insane speed advantage against his. However, thanks to that slipstream he's getting off of Oliver, it effectively means that he's able to stay in the fight. But I feel like I can make a move on the inside, massively misjudge it, and effectively just bump him out of the way. Now, because I want to avoid a penalty at this stage, I back off to let him back through again. But effectively what I've done is I've made a massive gap in between us and him, basically leaving Jamie to the sharks, because that cart he's driving isn't going to be enough to catch back up with Oliver's again. Oliver isn't going to slow down in order for them to preserve a slipstreaming relationship because he can effectively just run off with the win now, and all I need to do is try and salvage whatever I can and see if I can get past him in order to earn as many points as possible. I later put the final nail in the coffin of what I'm going to affectionately call the chicken nugget hating duo as I get a fantastic run on Jamie coming out the Comrade corner, give him a little bit of a bump to let him know that I'm there, quickly switch to the inside, which he absolutely was not expecting in that moment, sail past him going through Joey Dunlop, and take off, trying my hardest to catch up to Oliver up in P1. I've done this to myself, really, and once again, it's looking like it's going to be another P2 finish. Now, I'm not even going to waste your time or your intelligence pretending I got any closer to this guy than I did, because let's jump ahead right to the final lap of the race to see just how much ground I've made on him. Bam! Absolutely nothing. I maybe took out a tiny little chunk of time away from him. However, I am still fighting as hard as I can, still trying to stitch together an absolutely perfect lap right here in order to just try and gain any ground on him that I can in what I perceive to be the closing stages of the race, but while I'm in the cart, I've got no idea. So, as I come sailing down the Comrade Straight one more time, I make a conscious effort to hit every curb as close as I can. I get as far out wide as I can, going towards the entry towards the back Comrade corner, skirt that curb perfectly, make sure that I don't go way too wide on that exit there, which absolutely causes the cart to hop, which is not what you want it to do. I make sure to do this corner as perfectly as I possibly can. However, it just is not enough because there's the checkered flag. I've only gotten slightly closer to Oliver, and I've done this to myself. I threw away a win here, however, it's still another P2 finish, which for the point is going to turn out to be great. It's good to see that Jamie apparently doesn't hold any bad blood for what I did during that race, but, well, let's go back to the pits where I am about to learn something absolutely incredible and absolutely tragic at the same time.
Ah!
A record? Is that a lap record?
I don't think that's the record. I think I'm just a little bit shy.
Oh, mate.
No way.
Smash it.
Yeah, I think I'm like a couple hundredths shy of the lap record there. Oh, no way. Yeah, it's half a tenth slower than the track record.
Do you know what Captain Holt from Brooklyn Nine-Nine would describe that as? Pain. That was a terrible impression, but you get the point. In case you missed that last lap I just did was a 49.252, which is less than half a second slower than the track record. In the blink of an eye, if that lap had gone any differently, I could have been the fastest person to ever go around that track in a Sodi RT10. Finding that out and finding out that I have missed it by just that much absolutely crushed me. And the reason I'm bringing this up is it's going to come back in a minute in this next race to explain some certain on-track behavior that I may or may not have participated in. However, with that fresh in the back of my mind, I'm seated in Kart 5 again for my last heat, starting back in 12th again. Even though I need to recover back up into some decent standings for the points, the only thing that's brewing on my mind is I've got a decent kart here and a good shot of the track record in these conditions. So, let's get back into that rolling start and see what I can do here. And the light goes green, and let's go racing. Now, I am absolutely brimming with pride to show you one of the greatest opening laps I've ever done. As I survived the first and second corners in this massive pack here, I managed to sneak my way in this little order here, all the way up to P9, overtake two people on my outside here in order to secure P7. This individual on my inside here going through the Lunar Bend manages to hold it. However, as we're coming towards the Conrod Straight, I'm going to pull off one of the best moves I've ever done. We are side by side here, but I'm just inching ahead as I cut in between three karts right here for an Alex Albon style overtake in order to get up to P4. So I've secured 8 position gains within the first lap. However, it's not over because the guy in the orange helmet in front of me here is going to have an absolutely massive mistake here where he spins going through Joey Dunlop, handing me P3 right before the second lap even begins. And just so the universe can balance out what I've just done, as I come sailing out of the second corner, I go way too wide, bottom out on this curb here, almost drop it, fight to keep the kart facing the right direction, and then notice ahead of me we've got the chicken nugget hating duo of Jamie and Oliver up ahead, working together in order to try and run away with the lead. So I need to see what I can do in order to try and just chip away at those two, maybe hope that they'll fight each other in order to slow each other down, but my salvation comes in the form of Oliver going way too wide into this corner, having a massive moment, hopping over the curbs right there, effectively meaning those two have been split up, and now we're all going to have to fight each other in order to keep our standings. What definitely did not help my chances in this fight is the fact that Oliver is driving Kart 8, which is the kart I almost just broke the track record on. However, I'm going to use something against him that will absolutely net me the smallest of advantages, and that is track knowledge. Because I know exactly where to brake in that corner in order to gain the inside and get a lot of speed. Remember, this is Oliver's first time at this track, and now we've all bunched up quite close together as those two have resorted to bump drafting each other. As I overtake Oliver going into this corner and get another run on Jamie right here, he's learned his lesson about basically letting me through whenever those runs happen. He holds the inside this time as Oliver's pestering me around the outside, so I need to try and cover off Oliver while simultaneously trying to battle Jamie for position here. As I sneak it around the outside here, he starts forcing me wide, gives me a little nudge, and I, in response, holding the inside, effectively force him out of the way. That is absolutely advantage by contact, and what I should have done at that point was, again, let Jamie through. But at this point, the only thing that's running through my head is the fact that I am inches away from gaining the track record. I'm not interested in the race anymore. I've got clean air in front of me, I've got a decently quick kart, and I've got someone behind me who might occasionally bump into the back of me to give me a speed boost. So I've effectively decided at this point in the race, I'm going to tank the penalty. I just do not care at this point. If I manage to gain the track record, it will be worth it. However, Oliver makes an absolutely sensational dive to the inside coming through Joey Dunlop. However, that does mean I have the inside line coming towards the first corner, which I'm absolutely going to use to my advantage to lock him straight back out again and make sure that I try and hold this position ahead of him. However, as soon as he notices that I've got the 5-second penalty, he decided to hold station behind me to use me for slipstream in order to get away from Jamie, because he knows that he can. He doesn't need to pass me because he's won this race anyway. The only thing that I need to focus on is trying to stitch together a good lap to see if I can break the track record. This right here was the lap that I deemed worthy enough to be my attempt, as I navigate all these corners as tightly as I can, as quickly as I can, with very, very wide exits, skirting the edges as close as I can to the grass to try and preserve as much speed as I can, taking my usual line through the lunar bend right here in order to try and preserve speed, a nice wide exit. I'm even getting as desperate as possible going down the Conrod straight that I've resorted to human DRS again, because there is a little bit of a headwind. As I come heading towards the back corner, I don't even bother braking this time to initiate the rotation. I just throw that in, trying to get as much speed as I possibly can. I've got a decent line coming through this corner, and this corner is where laps are usually made or lost. I've decided that this lap is as good an attempt as I'm going to get, and I even cut to the inside here because I've heard from multiple people that if you cut to the inside on a hot lap attempt, you can actually cheese the timing line and gain just a couple of hundreds, which, as you know from my last attempt, was absolutely the difference between success and failure. However, the race has now come to a close, with me finishing the race on track in P1, but being penalised down to P2 to record my third P2 result of the entire evening. So, let's just get back into the pits, and then we'll close this one out, shall we?
Yeah.
I didn't get it! My best lap that race was a 49.4, effectively meaning I threw away the win for absolutely no reason. So, let's recap the results. Across those 3 heats, the first heat starting in P12, finishing in P2. The second heat starting in P3, finishing in P2. And the final heat starting in P12, finishing in P2. Now, you'd think that 3 second place finishes would absolutely mean second place overall in the standings, especially when you've got Oliver, who's just won 2 races. Wrong! Apparently, consistency beats victory in this format, because me getting second, and second yielded 10 more points than Oliver, who finished the first race down in 9th. So somehow, despite not winning a single race this evening, I have won the Three Sisters Summer Sprint event. I will take that one, I suppose. Honestly, the entire thing was kind of marred by the fact I was so unbelievably close to breaking that track record. And I think what stings the most is the fact that I'm likely not going to get that close for a while, because I was blessed with the kart I was driving and the conditions were absolutely perfect for it. So that was probably my one opportunity to gain that lap record gone. And it would have been incredibly hard to beat going into the winter months. I was this close to glory, man. I was this close! Thank you so much for watching this video. Sorry it took so long. I've been a little bit busy. And frankly, I don't know what the next one is going to be because, well, I went on a little bit of a Preston getaway with my friends. I tried to organize a race. It was an absolute disaster. So it effectively just became a 3 for 2 instead, where we just kind of compared average fastest times and made some results out of that. I also recorded my intercom and all the people who were in a Discord call with me while I was on track, which sounds funny, but the problem is not a whole lot happened on track, because what happens when you put 10 people who are all on pace together in a practice session on an electric track? That's right, nothing happens. So I'm not really sure what I'm going to do, to be honest. I have got another race coming up this weekend that hopefully will be interesting enough to make some footage out of, but, well, I'll play it by ear, really. But thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Until next time.